Tolec? Tolec,
Yes.
I got you.
Hi. Joe, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I got you. Okay, thank you.
Okay. And how about the volume?
Your volume sounds pretty good. I had a bunch of other callers in the line here, in the lineup, so sorry for the delay there.
Yeah, I can hear the delay just dropping off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sounds clear. Sounds clear.
Well, welcome back to A Guiding Light.
Well, thank you. Thank you. How was your week?
It was great. It went by so quick, though. It's hard to believe it was a week ago that we were talking.
I know. Yeah, especially with my weeks. They tend to scream by.
Well, I have my lovely girlfriend here, Vanessa.
Hi, Tolec. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Vanessa. Nice to meet you.
And she's going to be my co-host tonight, so we're going to kind of go at you with various questions here, and maybe we can talk about some ego versus spirit, and if there's any other updates that you have, I guess maybe we should get into that first. What do you?
Okay.
What?
I don't have any particular updates, but it's interesting that I listened at, as we did last week. I plugged in at about the 8 or 10 minute mark, so that I could be prepared to dial in. And one of the last things that I heard them say, I think it was the gentleman who said, well, the parts of ego have what to do with inner healing and emotional healing. And that's actually the approach for what I'm about to talk about tonight and address. And quite honestly, it's going to dovetail with something you and I talked about last week. So this will be one of those very synchronistic conversations.
Good. Cool. Well, I'll tell you what. If you have something you want to go with, I'm just going to let you go. And then but I do have questions along the way. But if you have something you want to talk about, I'm going to let you just go to it.
Yeah. It's an approach that I think will prove that everybody listening able for. Before I begin, I do want to say that, as I've mentioned before and to a lot of other people, I feel very comfortable and it's very easy for me to talk about all things Andromeda and Andromeda Council work related, talking about my personal life. But I'm actually going to get to a little more reference or dicings from my personal life to give people an actual illustration and how of what my life I've come through. So, I'll change the names or delete them to protect the innocent, but the story is still valid. It's still something that happened to me. So what I'll do is I'll take it piece by piece. I think it'll take me about 10 to 12 minutes to get through, but if you feel it's appropriate to jump in with a question, try to go ahead and speak slowly. I'll pause.
Okay, but before you go on, maybe you can call back because you have this echo thing going, and I think if we do that the whole way through the show, it's going to be annoying, and people aren't going to be able to hear exactly what you're saying unless there's something on your end you can change.
I'll tell you what. I will hang up and call back within seconds.
Okay, let's do that.
All right. Here we go.
All right, guys. So hang on the line here while Tolec hangs up, and we're going to get him right back on the line.
Joe?
Tolec, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Wow, that was really strange. Even the callers that were calling in, I tried to pick up, but I couldn't hear them.
Yeah. There's, let's see. Well, as you know, we were interrupted quite a few times last week.
Right.
It looks like the powers that be and Cabal, et cetera, have finally, discovered me and were certainly interrupting by way of an insidious clicking sound during all of last week's interview. And you weren't doing it, and I wasn't doing it. Yeah.
Right.
So sounds like they're obviously trying to interrupt this conversation again, but I'm glad we were reconnected.
Yeah, thank you for calling back in. And I'm just going to let you go with it for your 10 to 12 minutes. And then if any callers call in, after that, we'll bring them on. And then we have some questions for you as well.
Okay. Well, as I was mentioning earlier, I typically talk a lot about the actions the Andromeda Council have taken and are taking. And I'm really comfortable doing that, less so speaking about myself, but the only way that I'm going to be able to share what I know with regard to this lesson of ego and healing is to tell a story about myself. So what I'll do is the best job I can, I'll speak as slowly as possible to relay all the details, and I'll just retain the names of the people to protect the innocent. Okay?
Sounds good.
Here we go. All right, here we go. As a way of teaching, as I often do, I'm going to initially provide a couple of analogies and metaphors before I dive into the how-to, the means of positive change that I'm going to be speaking about. And as the last couple were talking about, actually in the last 8 to 10 minutes, either he or she mentioned inner healing and emotional healing. And I find it interesting that's exactly what I'm going to be talking about tonight, using myself as an example of ways that people can heal and change and have a completely different outlook on life. So, I also need to tell people that the foundational understanding for the knowledge I'm about to cover comes from what I learned from a very wise man, a very wise, if you will, spiritual teacher, a spiritual scholar, and his name is Gary Zukav. It's Z-U-K-A-V. And I learned about his teachings, and this goes back, what I'm about to describe goes back at least about 12 years before he ever came on Oprah, before he was ever famous. And back at that time, he had written at least 3 books that I was aware of. The first one I didn't read. That was the Dancing Wu Li Masters. The second book was The Seat of the Soul, and the third book was The Heart of the Soul. And today this guy's got a website. It's called seatofthesoul, SOUL.com. And between the 2 books, The Seat of the Soul is more technical in its writing style and approach. And The Heart of the Soul goes to the core issues of what Gary Zukav addresses. And it's much easier to absorb. In paperback, I think it's available today for about $7. But both of these books describe the ways that people act out in their day-to-day lives and why they act in certain ways that they do. And Mr. Zukav, for people that aren't aware of his work, it's worth citing and taking the time to go through because it's foundational to everything I'm going to be talking about. He boils down people's motivations and their actions into 2 main categories: love or fear. Here are some examples of love: kindness, appreciation, gratitude, helping others with small acts of kindness, giving of yourself with no expectations in return, simply letting people know that you care about them, people in your every day-to-day lives. Examples of emotional actions and ways of treating people, responding to certain situations, come out of the category of fear. And those include anxiety, anger, obsession, compulsion, avarice, greed, being hurtful, being spiteful, being mean, being hateful, lashing out. These are all examples of fear. And he addresses other issues in the books and specifically how each of them affects each of us. But what we're here to discuss this evening, at least in terms of my approach, is how each of these categories and the emotions that people retain in each of these categories affects us subconsciously. And it affects how we carry ourselves and how we act toward people over the course of years. Whether we're acting out of negative and fear-based emotions or we're acting out of love-based emotions. And the best thing that we can do to free ourselves and live fearless, fear-free, and happy lives is to be able to transmute and release those buried emotions that are fear-based, that continually cause us problems, because until we release them and heal, those fear-based, the energy of those fear-based emotions is going to dog us for all of our lives. So, here we go, and I'm going to dive into the analogy or the metaphor that I was talking about before I tell my own story. Here's the metaphor. All right, I need to be specific. The energy of old, buried, painful emotions and memories are like dirt in the bottom of a glass of water. You can't truly have clean water until you get rid of all the dirt, all of it. Now, you can go through your life, and your life will consist of a whole bunch of events and interactions, and every once in a while, some people or certain situations are going to trigger those old, painful emotions that are buried. And that's like taking the glass and shaking it, stirring it around. Well, sooner or later, once you stop stirring and the lesson of that particular experience settles down, it looks like you have a clean glass of water again, right? Well, that's only looks. It only looks like the water's clean. You cannot, as a person, and will not, as a person, have clean water, which is a clean, balanced, emotional life, until you get rid of all the dirt, until you transmute and release the energy of all of those hurt emotions. And that's the way that this works. Those emotions have energy, and they're buried. And unless we release those emotions and we transmute them, we're going to carry them into every single situation we get into that, to quote an old friend of mine, presses your buttons, so to speak. And the thing to do is have new positive emotions and experiences and memories that can create a new you. So, of course, the question now stands, how do we create new positive memories, emotions that create a new you? Well, as I mentioned, in order to create a new you, you have to transmute and release the buried emotions of the old you that you've been carrying for years. Here's the place where ego comes into play. The first thing you need to do is take your ego and set it aside so that any part of your ego that might seek to defend your past feelings, your past actions, your past emotions, because remember, we need to get to the true core of self and what those buried emotional issues are. You need to put that part of ego aside that would want to stand up and defend yourself. You got to put it aside enough to make a commitment to yourself that no matter what stuff that comes up that might cause new pain or might cause hurt as you're going through this healing process, because these are old, keep in mind, these are old pains, old emotions coming up from when you were 2, 3, 4, 12, 14, 18, 20, 22, 24, etc. These are all going to come up in the process of healing. And if you're going to heal, you have to put that defensive part of your emotion aside so that you can go through the healing process. I know this is a lot. I'm almost done. Most of you are now asking, how do we transmute and release those old painful memories and heal? How do we begin to have a fun, happy, fearless life? I'll be honest and say I don't know all of the ways, but I do know one that works. And now, here's my disclaimer. I'm not a clinician, nor am I a licensed therapist. I'm not. I'm simply one man who's gone through some considerable growth and healing in his own life. And I'm going to share with you one story that's evidence of how I was able to face my own history of painful emotions that I had carried around and why I'm living a different life today. This one story won't take too long, but it'll serve as a good illustration as to what I'm talking about. About 12 years ago, I was in a relationship with a young woman. We were both adults. I was in my really early 40s. She was in her late 30s. I'd never been married. She was married once. There were no children. So, we were both adults, well along in life. And this relationship should not have had any problems, and by any measure of a normal relationship. But somewhere around the 6-month mark of this relationship, I could tell that there were some things that were not right about her. There were huge mood swings. She, many times during the week, had a high degree of anxiousness and fear that didn't seem rationally based in anything. As an example, on some weekends when we would decide to go away, set plans to go someplace and go to a B&B and have a nice weekend together, we'd start to be like 5 to 7 miles out of town, maybe sometimes a little longer. She'd start causing fights. And she exploded at least 3 or 4 weekends that completely fell apart, that we almost never got out of town. And I had to turn around because her level of anxiety was freaking her out. I don't know what the clinical name for this, but it has to do with her need to stay close to home. And after about 6 months of watching this kind of behavior, and of course it was affecting our relationship, she asked if we would go to like a kind of an alternative family counselor, couples therapist. So now we're talking, 98, 99, and I don't know how much people were talking about couples therapy back then, but I cared about this woman and certainly loved her and said, okay, if we're going to give this relationship a real shot, then I owe it to her and to myself that we should go to this gentleman and engage in this couples therapy. This therapy lasted about 6 to 8 months. The relationship didn't make it, but what I learned in the process was not only did she have some pretty severe emotional issues, because as I came to find out, she had been abused as a young girl. And from what I understand, the younger the child, the deeper the trauma and the emotional abuse. And she was like 3.5 or 4 when this happened. And for some reason, in her mid to late 30s, this stuff all started to come up. And I apparently was, I think, her first boyfriend after a marriage crash that came into her life, and she was experiencing all of this stuff. Of course, it interjected itself into our relationship. The more important issue here is that she was able to undergo, and it wasn't traditional therapy, believe me. She was able to undergo therapy, and I was able to undergo learning, emotional healing of my own, because I came to find out in that process. Yeah, there were a lot of issues and problems that were caused because of her severe emotional reactions, her anxieties, her fears, her phobias that were getting in the way of us having a healthy relationship. There were some old pains of mine that were coming up from when I was like 4, 5, 6, 14, 15 as a teenager. Those issues had to do with my relationship with me and Mom. And I love her dearly, but we've all got issues with our parents, and there were our brothers and sisters. I had some issues with my dad that I had to deal with. The point of this whole story is that I came to learn that there's a process that people call today called NLP, And that's what this gentleman did for us. What he did was spend some time with us, ask us some questions, and then he would build a tape for each one of us. And we would each go home and he'd say, you got to listen to this tape at least 14 times to manifest change, because the tape has music, it has alpha, beta, delta, and theta brainwave activity, which will go to your subconscious and reprogram into your subconscious how you feel about these different aspects of your life. I think she had, I don't know, like 12 or 14 tapes, and I went home with, I think, 4 after many sessions. Most of them had to do with self-esteem and self-consciousness. I remember one clearly where I had to come to peace and come to terms with certain issues about myself and my dad. And the end of this whole story is that that experience was transformative. And every time I finished a tape, I would start to feel lighter and more free. Every time I finished a tape, I started to feel a new aspect of myself rise to the surface. I remember when I finished the last tape, and I couldn't tell you now what it was about, but it had to do with enjoying all of life that there is here for us, that this is a beautiful planet, it's a beautiful world, that there are things waiting for us to delve into and to explore, and that in the process of life we can be the best that we can be, kind of the tape. Today I'm aware of a woman who's been producing, initially I think it was tapes, and then CDs, and more recently MP3 downloads. And her name is Kelly, it's either Howell or Powell. Her website is brainsync.com. And I'm not necessarily endorsing her, but I'm not endorsing her either. I'm just saying that this is the method that helped us, and certainly helped me, become a new person, because everything that I went through in those 3 or 4 tapes helped me transmute and release a whole bunch of old emotional pain that I had been carrying around my own life that no longer served me. I had gotten to that point where I was ready to clearly evolve, and I had to put my ego aside in working with this man who is this couples therapist, this counselor. I had to put my ego aside in order to look and face all of those old fears and pains. And the result has been astounding. I'll share with you another story which kind of will button up this whole scenario and give proof that I'm a living example that this stuff works. Back in 2001, let me back up. I had to leave the southern Arizona area back in the late 90s. That's when I met this woman back in my home state in the Northeast. Came back to southern Arizona and was hired by a local man in a real estate development firm and did some work with him. Now, this man was somewhat of a tyrant. And in many ways, he resembled not the tyrant piece, but the barking and yelling piece. My own dad, when he wasn't getting his way, would bark, and he would bark loudly to intimidate. Now, that hadn't been said. I love my dad, but he still did it the whole time I knew him. And in the same way, this guy that I worked for here locally, I experienced within 3 to 4 months the same kind of arrogant kind of bullying behavior, that if he didn't get his way, it didn't matter who he was talking to, he was going to start barking louder and louder and louder, ultimately until he got his way. Well, the reason for the story is this. Since I had transmuted and released the pain of that experience of my dad barking at me my whole life, by the time that I got to this guy, this new boss, he started to bark at me. And sooner or later, after 3 or 4 months, he figured out that he wasn't affecting me. He couldn't control me because his barking didn't affect me. Now I'll tell you exactly why it didn't. When people bark and they're carrying an abusive or harmful energy that's meant to intimidate, there's fear in back of that energy. If he was barking at me, trying to produce fear, and I was still carrying the energy of fear, I would feel it. Okay? So now we look again at this scenario with this man who is my boss. He's barking and yelling and barking, and I'm standing there like a cloud. It's just blowing right through me. I appreciate the points that he's making. I find no need to defend myself. I ask him some questions, but I can't feel his fear. I can't feel his anger. It's literally going through me like a cloud. Why? Because I had healed from that pain of that energy carried forward from what Dad did as I was a kid growing up. I had healed that part of me. So I was no longer carrying the fearful energy of that pain. So this boss is barking and yelling and barking, and after 4 months he gave up and he fired me. It was great. He couldn't control me. He couldn't control me because there was no pain or fear to control. That's the end of all my stories. And again, today, people call it NLP. People weren't calling it that back then, but this is what I went through with this young lady. Subsequent to our couples therapy together, I worked with this gentleman for another 6 months to heal and transmute all of those painful old energies that I was carrying around. And I've been a happy little dog ever since. I'm laughing because this is, it's my life. This is what I've been through. And if I do sound joyous, it's because I do live a joyous life. There's not much that I run into that I can't handle. I've had all sorts of people, negative, mean, vengeful, hurtful, vulgarity, swearing, accusative on the Andromeda Council YouTube channel when different videos are posted and they post their thoughts or opinions. I have yet to lash out at one of them, not one of them. Now, I may not allow their abusive behavior on the channel. That's my prerogative. But I never lash back out at them. Why? Because they don't touch any fear or pain in me. I just see what they are, how they're acting. I stop their behavior. That's what it's like to live as a fear-free, self-empowered person. Pause. How is this relevant to spiritual growth? When people clear out all of the muck of the dirt in the bottom of your glass called your emotional spiritual body, your spiritual essence can start to open up enough to start asking questions about who am I? Why am I here? Why have I come here to this planet? What is my role about? I really need to ask somebody. If I can't get those answers myself, I need to ask somebody who will give me those answers. Where, spiritually, how long ago was I born? What planet was I born on? What is my spiritual core essence all about? Why am I people will start to ask those questions, and they'll start to ask those questions of themselves more than they will about who's coming here and why. And they'll do that because they've already gotten to the place where they're self-empowered. And most of those people will be able to ride this transition that we're coming through and will continue to come through with the evolution of this planet. I use the metaphor of light on the reins. If you're riding a horse, give the horse some slack, go light in the reins. That's how these people will go through this transition of our planet into being a next dimensional world. Very lightly, very calmly with very little disruption. That's what it's like to live a life that is fearless, self-empowered, and without fear. And it's my own experience, and that's all it is. I hope I did a good job of explaining it, but I thought it would. Believe me, I had no clue that those people were going to say in the last 8 to 10 minutes, it's about inner healing and healing your inner child. But, here we are. and this is my story, and if it can help anybody to any degree, here it is, and I hope that it can.
No, absolutely. That was a great testimony. Thank you for that. And I mean, because a lot of people, and I even asked this this past show an hour ago, within the hour, I guess, how are real people, or how is this practical to like all of humanity? I mean, a lot of teachers teach these types of things, but can't even do it themselves. So Here you are giving a testimony of something that you physically did, and you actually, on many levels, without even, maybe you didn't even know it, but I'm talking about the energy part that you said that when you carry these lower vibrational frequencies or energies of fear within you, what you have within yourself, you attract more of that to yourself. And we were just talking about that. I was just saying that you attract the same boyfriend, and in fact, with the same first name, and they look exactly the same, you attract that to yourself over and over and over again until you can transmute it and get rid of it.
Right. Well, in my case, it was a girlfriend.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But
thank you. And it's by the way, for the record, it's always been a girlfriend. You make a really good point. By the way, I no longer attract those kinds of women at all. And since that point in time, and this is, here's another, you talk, there are all sorts of different spiritual teachers out there, but whether it's Wayne Dyer or Gary Zukav or others, they all talk about, whether they call them spiritual or emotional, they are still lessons. And all of them that I've ever heard say that these lessons come in layers, like in layers of an onion. And the lesson can come back 4, 5, 6 times as a different nuanced layer of that same lesson. And in closing on this subject, what will happen is maybe it's like the 5th time, and you'll see that lesson coming off from off in the distance, and you go, no. I've seen this one before. Been there, done that, buried the T-shirt, don't need to do it again. And you know what? It won't come back. Because you got to get to that place. You got to get to that place where you go, don't need this anymore. I've learned this lesson. I can see what it is. Exit. I'm going this way because I don't need this lesson. And it's not avoidance. It's about discernment and deciding what each of us want in our lives. And again, once we see those come up over and over again, we learn that last layer. When we learn of that particular lesson, we don't need to go through it again. We just don't, and they don't come around anymore. They just don't.
Right.
And you're right. It is the energy of the emotions that get buried in our subconscious. And what I learned about the healing process is that each of these tapes, what they would do is they would break, first of all, they'd use alpha, beta, delta, and theta brainwaves of different variances, and they would break down the old, painful, quote-unquote, negative emotion that was being carried forward, and the first half of the tape. And in the second half, or the second 2/3, he or today, Kelly Powell, will use visual images to build beautiful new imagery in your subconscious. And I've also learned that everything I've ever heard about human spirit and human motion is that we retain things best visually. And so there'll be things like beautiful castles with walls overflowing of ivy and cascading waterfalls of beautiful color and sparkling light. And, they use all sorts of imagery to reinforce new feelings of goodness and healthiness and wholeness. And, it's funny because 2 weeks ago, you and I were talking about, somebody came in my office. This is you. And I had finished my work, and there was this man or woman who has this NLP practice. And you came out, and you're like, wait, I want to talk to you. And this is what we're talking about. This is exactly what we're talking about. This is the process of NLP. And this is how it transforms people's lives.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you, speaking of energy, when you were carrying a lower vibration, even though you didn't know it, looking back, since you released that or transmuted that, do you find that it's easier now to connect with the Andromedans now, or could you not even connect at that particular time because you're at a lower vibration?
Okay, this answer has 2 parts. Part A, the answer is late summer of 1993 is when the commander of the primary Andromeda Council Biosphere picked me up, and we took 3 trips back in time. I did not have any contact with him again until September 2010. Okay, Part D. The period of late summer 1998 through all of 1999 into mid-2000 is when I had that relationship and went through all of that growth, releasing all of those old, painful emotions. So that's like year 2000. Year 2001, I come back to the southern Arizona area, and I live my life, and I do my thing, and I work for a couple of companies. And then September 2010, I start having contact with the commander from the primary Andromeda Council Biosphere again. So there is a large period of time between 93 and 2010, which encompassed 98, 99, 2000 of when I went through that period of healing. So, I'm sure that they saw what happened in my life so that they knew I was able to handle whatever would be thrown at me, because I'm not operating from a place of fear. I'm just a pain in the butt, and I ask a lot of questions. But certainly not from a place of fear at all. No, not at all. Right. I don't know if that answered your question, but
basically, because we're talking about energy, and I know I don't know if you've meditated throughout that whole time, or if you notice now, because you must be telepathic, or you must be communicating that way in some sense. A lot of us are channeling, whether we know it or not. And once you release a lot of these lower vibratory energies or attachments or blockages or whatever, to me it seems like it's a lot easier to tap in or to connect once all of that is released, because as you say, the fear vibration is lower, so it keeps you from that higher dimension, those higher energies.
Yeah, that's a good point. Prior to my experience, prior to my physical field trip through outer space back in time, in the late summer of 93, at least to my knowledge and based on my memories, all of my communication that was coming from him and them was all one way from them and coming to me in either like a vision, quick snapshot visions, and a lot of them in the dream state. I had a lot of dream state experiences of being in outer space, on being ships, flying through space. But, you make a good point, because I didn't start any of my telepathy with him until there was this telepathic contact when I was in northern Arizona in 2008. And it was brief. And then all of the contact started telepathically, which results in the website people see today, in September 2010. So the telepathy only started like once in 2008, and then a whole bunch, and it's continued forward since 2010. So yeah, you make a really good point there.
Okay. I got some questions, and I'm sure Vanessa does also, but we have a caller online. Are you ready for some questions now, since we have somebody on the line, or do you want to, how do you want to do this?
it's your show. I'm gonna let you run this however you want to, and take the ball, run with it. Go ahead.
All right. Well, you know what? Then area code 631. Welcome to A Guiding Light.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you for calling in.
Oh,
Do you have a
great.
question?
You're welcome. Yes. Hi, my name is Kim, calling from New York. How are you?
I'm very good. How about
Good,
yourself?
thank you. I've been getting disconnected throughout the whole entire show, so I apologize if that happens in the middle of this. But I'm calling from New York, and I'd like to say hi. Hi, Tolec. How are you?
Hello. Doing good. Good to hear the voice.
Good. Good to hear your show. What I can hear of it is amazing, and I did hear the first hour. So I just want to comment on, thank you for sharing that story. That was definitely helpful. And it leads into the question that I have, actually, which is people who have been doing this work and have read those books, which I read Zhukov's work actually years ago too, so that's a funny coincidence. But, people who read Eckhart Tolle, Zhukov, do the work, do the spiritual work, the psychological work, all of that, who have been on this path, meditation, all of that.
But Kim, and I'm sorry to interrupt. We'll break this issue into two. The healing issue into two parts. A is the Zhukov part, which is here's why people act the way they do, and that's what his books are about. It's like here's why, and here's how people act from either fear or love, and what are the descriptions in both of those categories. So that's why they do it.
Right.
The healing part is what I went through with this girlfriend at that time. Because if each of us are, and I think the glass of water is a great metaphor. If each of us are a glass of water, and all we do is we wait until the dirt settles to the bottom, every time somebody really pushes our buttons, that water's going to get dirty again, and it'll just kind of settle down, and you think you've got a clear glass of water. Seemingly clear glass of water equals a calm, evolved, healed, whole person. Wrong.
Right.
It's the glass.
Yeah.
You're right. Right. It's the glass of seemingly clear water with some dirt that settled at the bottom. You gotta get rid of the dirt, and the way to get rid of the dirt, at least based on how I experienced it, was to put ego aside, put the fear of facing the messy stuff. You gotta put that aside, and you go, all right, whatever comes up in this session with this man or woman, whoever you deal with, or even if it's just the brain stink, MP3s or downloads, that's the healing part. That's the part that addresses the old fears and emotions, transmutes them, releases them, and builds a new sense of positive self. That's the people that not many people are talking about. You need A and B.
I agree completely. I completely agree. I think that's a rare animal to find somebody who has A and B, and that's why I'm so thrilled to have calls like this and speak to Dr. Marra and yourself, because I find very few people that can talk about A and B and who will read these books. But I highly do recommend the books you've talked about, as well as Eckhart Tolle, taking up practices like Yoga Nidra, which is a meditative form of healing. You actually don't even necessarily have to know why everything is. I mean, I like to know why.
That's true.
But
the
you can heal yourself, because there may not be time to go there, with all that for some people. If they haven't been on this path for years and years,
Yeah, absolutely. The Zhukov books simply explain why, but it's the and Kelly with her brain sync downloads or MP3s. She's one person that's done it really well, I think, for like 10 or 12 years, but it works. I mean,
I agree,
I'm happy
because
to say
is that the one you were? She goes into the different states of mind, of different states of consciousness of the brain, the alpha state and that sort of thing. Is that what you were talking about?
Yes. And this gentleman...
Yes, because you were fading in and out of the call. My call was dropping. So I absolutely agree with that form of healing, and I've been very familiar with that form of healing for a number of years, and there are definitely a lot of people out there who can help people with that. And Yoga Nidra is another one that does that it takes your brain into those states and heals things on such a deep level that you don't need to know every reason why you are the way you are. In fact, I think it would be really, really hard to know every reason why, especially when you even mentioned a lot of this stuff happens subconsciously. So how are you going to know that? So especially if we're like, we're, as a little kid, 3, 4, 5, 6, I know that I'm not happy all the time, but I'm certainly not conscious of carrying forward that unhappiness. And I did. And I carried forward unhappiness as I was a not happy teenager. There's just stuff. And the good news is I didn't have to bring it into my adult life anymore. I'd gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, in for a dime, in for a dollar. I'm here with this young woman. I'm going to invest myself in this healing process, whatever comes up. And I did. So it works. All I can say is it worked for me, and I certainly recommend it to other people. I agree. I completely do too, and I've done that same type of work and other similar work, and I agree absolutely. And it kind of leads into my question here for you, whether you've had this discussion or not, I'm not sure yet, but as far as the spiritually active people or people like yourself or Dr. Marra or others who have been on this path and done this work, how will this affect us after the shift? Will we still be on a different path? Because I consider myself on a very different path than any of my friends and most of my family. I have very few people, even in the yoga world and world of meditation, that I can completely talk about all of these aspects with, how spirituality and science tie together with with ufology and exopolitics and what's going on in politics in the world and the whole thing, the shift, all of it. So it's hard to find people that can talk about that whole entire group of subjects and so much more, like yourself. So I guess my question is, how will that, we're on a different path than most people, how is that going to be different after the shift, or will it, or will everything just balance out? I'm not sure if the two are related, but I'll give you the best answer that I can. Okay.
This solar system, this planet, is raising in vibration, and it's going to come to a point where, based on everything my Andromeda Council friends have told me about, January 2014, this world becomes literally and vibrationally a fourth-dimensional world. That means that our physical, gross matter, organic bodies transmute and transform, and we become crystalline-based, fine essence spirit matter bodies who are simply more evolved by virtue of the vibration that we're going to be operating at. I think globally, everybody has an opportunity to grow, and we all have an opportunity to learn about each other, but spirituality is not what people think. Spirituality is not about, and I'm going to paraphrase some people who say, oh, I'm getting so much closer to God, and I no longer follow, the Catholic faith or the Lutheran faith or the Jewish faith. I'm just spiritual and I believe in God. All right, well, now here's the point of differentiation. Becoming spiritual is not about getting closer to God, the Creator. You can choose to get closer to the essence of what is that beautiful creational life force called God, Creator, the Great Mystery. But becoming more spiritual is about the process to learn as much as you can about what your true core spiritual essence is. Where did you come from? Which planet?
Yeah.
How long ago? Who are your people? Why are you here? That's what being spiritual is about. And people have gotten that issue confused for a long, long time. Now, I don't know if that
I was crazy. No,
I don't know if that answers your question, but
well,
you know,
I understand what you're saying. I guess what I more want to know is I get it, but so it's all about our individual connection. Yes, that's going to definitely still be there after the shift. But I guess what I mean is because we're still going to be semi-physical in 4D, we're still going to have a bit of an ego, I think, at least one enough to get through our day and, you know, that sort of thing. How is our spiritual path now, if it's one that's pretty progressive and pretty high, how will that translate later after the shift?
Okay, all right, now I understand. All right, here we go. Everything that I've learned about higher dimensional life, whether you're talking about like from the mid-4th level up to the 5th, and then the lower 5th and the mid-5th and higher, it's all about evolution. So once we become, and we're not going to be popping into the lower 4th. Everything that I've learned tells me we're going to be popping somewhere into like the mid-4th dimensional and or density level. So each of us will have an opportunity to have the experiences we're supposed to have, to learn whatever we want to learn, to explore whatever we want to explore. And somewhere, sometime around like the 8,000 or 9,000 year mark, because everything that I've been told tells me that as fourth dimensional beings, our lifespan goes up until about 10,000 years. Now, keep in mind we're talking about fine matter, crystalline body essence years, not organic coarse matter. So we're talking about a long period of time, and when we get to the place that we go, you know what, I've learned as much as I can here in this fourth dimensional, fourth density vibration. I've contributed as much as I can to society. I'm ready to evolve to the fifth. And you choose a moment, and you and your sweetheart or whoever, and you evolve. And then you're a fifth dimensional person, and you choose to learn new fifth dimensional experiences, which include joining a group of, let's say, ornithologists, people who like to study birds, and you want to go to the planet Venus to study fifth dimensional birds. Well, you and Jack and Sue and Pete and Phil can all get together in a soul group, a little blue energy ball, and travel off to Venus and study fifth dimensional bluebirds. Those are the kinds of things that fifth dimensional people do. So the short answer is it's all about learning, education, evolution, choice, and then moving on and becoming a higher dimensional person. That's how it works.
True. Okay, I understand that too. And I don't want this to sound like ego, but I realize that it may. What I want to know, though, really is how much of our current path in this reality that we've achieved, say, spiritually, not economically or wealth-wise or anything, but spiritually, our spiritual experiences and what we've learned, and, you know, say the story you told and what you went through, that dark night of the soul that you went through, these things we go through that take us to the next level, and all of our spiritual experiences. So are you saying that when we get to the other side, where we be is in conjunction with where we currently are spiritually? And we just continue to grow from there? So it's kind of like an always evolving growth process spiritually?
All right. Well, you're actually mixing up emotional growth and spiritual acknowledgement and spiritual growth.
Okay, let's just say spiritual growth. Agreed. Let's not say emotional growth. Let's just say spiritual growth.
Okay. Spiritual growth only has to do with the evolution of human beings and other species on this planet as we go from being 3D to 4D. This is not a theological issue. This is an issue of evolution. There are Mayans and researchers and all sorts of other people, and I'm not a researcher, I'm not an investigator, but I don't know how many people there are, including the Mayans, that say at this moment in this solar system, in this planet's history, it is its destiny to evolve and go to the next higher vibrational level. That is a physicality. That is a change in physicality, a change in dimensional being, aka a different level of spiritual life. You could use those words, but it's a different level of density, different level of dimensional life. And I don't care whether you're a fifth dimensional person or a fourth or a third, we always learn and grow. That's the answer to that question is given. But yes, the emotional and spiritual are connected only to the degree that, like you said, you got to clear out all of the crap so that you can start examining who am I from a spiritual perspective. Where did I come from? What planet? What people? Am I, how long have I been coming here and experiencing a 3D life to have all of these 3D experiences? That's the only degree that the questions of spirituality are relevant. But living that life, we're just going to change. We're going to go from 3D to 4D. I am specifically trying not to make it mystical because in the context of this conversation, it's not mystical. There's emotional healing and growth, and then there's evolution. And we're going to evolve. We're going to go from being a soul and spiritual essence that's wearing a human body to being a soul, spiritual essence, fourth dimensional human. And that's all fine matter. Fine matter, spirit matter. They're all the same.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this has helped you at all, but don't mix the two terms of emotional growth and spiritual growth, even though they're connected.
Okay.
Spiritual growth is just evolution. It's a non-theological issue. It's about the vibration.
Right. I'm not speaking theologically at all. I'm meaning totally a spiritual connection with your inner source, your higher self.
Right.
That's what I mean. And so a person who's currently connected to that now, I'm just curious if they're going to be a little bit more evolved once the shift happens.
Be fully aware.
The person who's not connected at all, who's still going to shift, that may not have any.
Can I jump in here?
And let me answer first, and this is a 20-second answer. This will help. People who are here on planet Earth, January 2014, during the moment of the shift, we will gain back all of our memories from all of our past lifetimes. There'll be complete knowledge. Okay. And I don't know if that helps or not, but sorry, Joe, go ahead.
I think it does. It does help. Thank you. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add that this is such a big story here that Tolec is right in what he's saying, but I think there's more to it than that because there's 7 billion people on this planet, and not everyone comes from the same planet, from the same dimension. Some of us are here from higher dimensions, and some of us will go to 4D. Some of us will go to these higher dimensions from where we've come. We've only come here for this experience and to help humanity and help the Earth transition. But
You're right.
Also, so with her question, I just wanted it to be clear so other people who are listening who that didn't ring true to, because it is a truth. You're right on when you're saying it, but there's a bigger story to it as well. And not to miss out on, we live thousands of lives, and it depends on where our next life is and where we want to go to. And one thing that's also important to say is some of the other people that are considered, friends or even our family, we can't bring them with us because that's not their soul journey. And it's okay to let them be where they're going to be. And not everybody's going to shift, in my opinion. Now, this is my opinion, but it's rational to think of it this way, because if you don't reach a certain vibratory frequency, you can't. It's just like the reptilians; they can't hang here at a lower vibration, and it's their choice. And we do live in a free will zone right now, so you have the choice to work on yourself, go within, and shed all the old and the crap, as we've been talking about, to go within and go with Mother Earth, because quite frankly, she's ascending whether we're ready or not. And so just by virtue of being on the planet at that time that Tolec is talking about, I totally agree. Those who have chose to be here at that time are going to experience just that. And I think it's going to be cool because it's never happened before, at least not in my awareness. And so this is really an experiment. And these higher beings that are here with us and they're all around us that we might not be able to perceive, nonetheless, they're here. They're here for the big show. And this is an experiment of humanity. It's an experiment of the DNA manipulation and changing. And our star families, they're all out there rooting us on and being like, hey, let's do it. Those who want to come, let's do it. And those who don't, you're perfectly fine. There's no judgment.
Yeah.
And
Joe, I understand, and I'm able to talk about this now because enough people have asked about it. I've had enough people write in with the question, all right, well, Tolec, and this is coming in a lot, like in the past 2.5 weeks, how many people do you think are going to evolve along with the planet as it becomes a higher dimensional world? Share with me that the number is going to be about 50%, plus or minus 5% either way, that will stay here on planet Earth. It's like in for a dime, in for a dollar. I'm here for the ride. Wherever it takes us, I'm here. And the other 50%, plus or minus, are going to choose to leave. And there are a couple of ways that they can do that, but they just, and actually it's more important to talk about why they're going to choose to leave. They're simply going to choose to leave because their souls and their spirit essence have not yet had enough lessons. They haven't had enough seasoning. And they need more schooling. They need more lessons and seasoning on another third-dimensional world. And so they'll be able to get that.
Yeah,
but that's what I've been told. That's the simple answer as to why the number is going to be somewhere around 50-50, because 50% of them are just, they're not ready. And you know what? That's okay. It really is okay.
I totally agree with you. I don't know what the numbers, of course. That's not my forte, but I totally agree with the rationale. That's exactly right. And that's why on the other side, in these higher dimensions, there's no judgment. There just is. Because they know that we've come here to simply experience. And we are timeless beings. We never die. If we don't get it this time, we'll get it the next time. And if it's, if you want to experience something that's what we maybe in our reality here in 3D, some of us may perceive as like a heinous crime or something like that, that's your choice to come here and do that. That's what this planet was here. It's a dualistic. And without the opposition, there's no growth. And that's why this planet specifically is such a hard knocks, so to speak, planet for educational purposes, whether it be for, I guess what I like to call your consciousness, the growth in consciousness and evolution in that respect.
One of the other reasons that they said that this is such a difficult place, and actually this time it's not a they. I was having a conversation with Wendell Stevens back in like 94, 95 here locally, and we were sitting down drinking some herbal tea one Saturday afternoon. We were just talking and shooting the ball, and I said, Wendell, why? Why is this planet so challenging? And why are there so many extraterrestrial and interdimensional life forms coming here? And he said, understand that this planet, more than any other 3D planet out here, has the greatest amount of diversity out of all the other 3D worlds. This one planet is like a microcosm of the solar system, of this galaxy, and of the universe. But again, more than any other planet, it's got the greatest amount of diversity. So for them, it's like coming to the zoo, and they get to see all of these people that have been seeded here from all these different star systems, all these different languages, all these different cultures, all these different theologies, all trying to make it on the same planet.
Right.
This is a tough place.
Yeah, I totally agree.
tough place. But, but also concurrently, if you're going to get some lessons and you want to learn quick, this is the spot to be.
That's it. And a lot of us have come here right before this ascension process or during it because of that particular reason. And that's why people go to certain areas on this planet that are tougher than others, just to get that last lesson in so you can kind of make the shift, so to speak. And you'll be drawn there, or you'll go kicking and screaming, but you'll end up there. So there's a lot of things we can't explain, and we sit there and question why. But, you know, like you said earlier, this is to the caller, you know, you don't always have to know in the ego mind why things are the way they are. Sometimes it's better just to go with the flow, and just like water. Because right now is a time that you need to just go with the flow. There are going to be so many changes. There already are, but there's going to be more and more. And
they're going to come faster and faster and faster.
Right.
Oh, yeah. yeah, absolutely.
Hey, we have another caller, so thank you, caller from New York. I appreciate the call. That was great.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for taking my call, and many blessings. Tolec, great to hear your voice, and take care, you guys. Have a great night. I'll be listening. Bye.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
All right, good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so we have a caller, area code 551, and we're pulling you on now. Welcome to A Guiding Light.
Hey guys, this is Howard from New Jersey. Hey Tolec, haven't spoken to you in a while. How you doing?
Hey, how are you, Howard?
I'm doing much better. Great show, guys. I really can relate to what you're saying, especially about the ego and the spiritual quest. Trying to find one's, I guess, spiritual essence, and that being such an ego-based person, and reacting to the negative energy. You know, I did have two quick questions. The first one, I don't know if you had covered, but when you said that a lot of the alien enemies are coming here because the entire planet's going to evolve to 4D, were you saying that's rare, or it's just flat out never happened before, that 7 billion souls descended at once?
It has never happened to this planet. I understand there are a couple of times we've come close. I don't know the details of those times, but that's actually one of the reasons why the people of the Andromeda Council and the various biospheres, including the primary one, that's one of the reasons why they're so excited. This is one of those wow kind of events, because it's the first time that, if you will, a whole planet of people will be able to evolve and become higher dimensional beings without having to die. Basically, you know, you go to bed on a Sunday night, and the next morning you're January 2014, and you're now a fourth dimensional being. That's the deal.
That's wild.
Yeah, first time ever. And they're jazzed because, if you will, again, the whole planet gets to do it without having to die. And B, there are a lot of people from a lot of higher dimensional worlds and on the biospheres that all have spiritual brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and cousins, and they can't wait to see their family members down here. So it's kind of cool, actually. It's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, one thing I'd like to add to that is that I know we're putting out that one particular date, but in addition to that, right now, everything, as we've been talking about, is getting faster and speeding up, and time is just flying by. And I really think that there are various people on this planet that are also going to evolve to that particular point up until that point. So we're probably going to be mixed, in my opinion, with some people that have these higher abilities that we've ever had before up until that particular point, and then maybe everybody does shift at that time. I'm not sure, but this is my own perspective or my own consciousness, that I know that as time goes on, and as this planet continually raises in vibration, and we keep attuning to her, and also the sun, as it's having these solar flares, it's also sending energy, which is also uplifting and raising us in vibration and energy and consciousness. And I really think that that's what we're going to see. Some of us in consciousness have woken up before others, and not only is it an awareness, but a side effect, if you will, is going to be these abilities that we have of our truest and highest potential between now and the time that Tolec is talking about.
Yes. Yeah. And certainly the people that are already fully conscious, awakened, aware, they keep looking around this corner going, all right, what's next? You know, it's like, this is a roller coaster ride. You know, what's the next thing around the next corner that's going to bring us one step closer?
Right.
And I know I've got a lot of people writing to me going, Tolec, man, when is this going to happen? I know you're telling us January 14, but come on, let's speed this thing up. This is way too much fun to wait for. I'm like, yeah, you know, it's all right. There's some stuff that's got to happen on this planet first, so, you know, one thing at a time.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, I just have one last question. I don't know if you recall when I told you a ways back that I was engaging in a lot of deep meditation. I had shared a couple of my, I don't know if you call them visions or whatever they were, but that sense of traveling. And, you know, the thing I remember was just how vivid the visions were. It's like, you know, the sky never looked so blue. Colors were almost alive. The water just looked amazing. It almost sensed like everything was vibrating. Just I couldn't even really put it into words. And that all based around the 11-11-11 event when I was able to actually achieve that. And then I told you I was struck with some weird medical illness where I lost feeling on the upper left-hand side of my body, like right down my forehead, left, you know, ear, neck, back, right arm, everything. And all that meditation went right out the window, and I got bounced into our medical system, which, you know, solution was high dose steroids for 3 months, which just pushed me to hell and back. Yeah, you know, 4 MRIs later, they basically couldn't figure out what it was, and all the symptoms went away. But is that anything with just I didn't have any proper training, and I was just pushing myself too far, or some type of reptilian backlash? I don't know, but I've been afraid to attempt anything like that since I've recovered.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things. I don't meditate. So, you know, what I achieve simply because I'm having conversations with these guys, and they're downloading, you know, snapshot images. I'm doing stuff in dream state, and a lot of it's telepathy. But I believe you. I believe what you're telling me. I honestly have no way of knowing what triggered, what happened to you medically. I don't, because I don't live your life. I'm not standing next to you watching what happens, but I can comment on what you said initially about what you were sensing and seeing. You know, literally higher vibrational frequencies, more vivid colors. Not only vivid colors, but more vivid colors. You know, if you will, sparkling water. All of that is true. Yeah, all that's true of the next dimensional level up. As well as seeing some creatures we've never seen before because we didn't vibrate at that frequency, so therefore we couldn't see them. So we're going to be seeing some new critters. But you know, sometimes things just happen in our lives, and sometimes they just happen to make us slow down. I don't know what the answers are, but I hope you've recovered okay.
No, I'm fine now. I just try not to go there. I just didn't know if maybe I was reading your experiences and what you described, and I was trying to push myself to go there and to make contact. And I thought, well, maybe I'm just not able to, and that's just too much for me to take. To try to force yourself to envision, you know.
Well,
so I keep it simple now. More what you guys were saying earlier about, you know, just being a spiritual being, doing the next right thing, and that seems to be the path that's working out better right now.
Yeah. Joe, you were going to make a comment?
Yeah, you know, because I do practice traditional medicine as well as doing the complementary. I would tell you that, and Vanessa and I were just talking about this because she's quite spiritual as well with your particular question, and her comment was exactly what I was thinking, in that you had a release. And through that high vibration of energy, whether you had a cellular memory from this life or from another life, it appeared to me that that's what released. But because of fear and because of what we've been brought up to learn from birth on, whether it be from our family members or the educational system or even from our doctors and, you know, immunizations and all that other stuff, we always seem to go back to the 3D way of doing things because that's what we're comfortable with. And so what I would suggest is not to give up on your meditation, because that is quite effective in tapping into your higher self, into your heart. And that's what you're really going to need over the coming months, is to maybe not go so hard so fast, but just allow yourself, though, to tap into yourself. And if none of this rings true to you, don't listen to what I'm telling you, because each individual person on this planet has their own responsibility for themselves, whether it be healthcare or their lifestyle or whatever, because I don't know what you came here to accomplish, as a soul growth. But just from what you did ask a question, so I'm just trying to be broad and say, ideally speaking, I don't think that it's ever a bad idea to go within or meditate and tap into your higher self to get the information that you need for you. That would be my advice.
Right. And by the way, the way that I meditate, and meditate in quotes in this case, I sit outside at night and I listen to the stars, or I listen to the crickets. I'll be out on the back porch and I'll watch the little ground squirrels and the butterflies and watch the pollen floating around. I choose to spend as much time as I can in nature. Not enough, and that's, for me, that's what settles and centers me.
Right.
And for me, I get answers without even asking. Information will come to me just because I'm out in nature. Yeah, just because I'm out in nature and my mind is quiet. The whole essence of me is quiet and still. Information comes in.
Absolutely.
So that's my method of meditation, if you will.
No, and that is a form of meditation. You're exactly right. A lot of people do that, and the more time you spend out in nature, or tapping into Mother Earth, taking your shoes off, and truly grounding into the energy that she's emitting right now, it's just amazing how it centers you. But most people don't know that.
Yeah, it's very powerful.
Drink lots of water, because we're made up of a high percentage of water, and we don't replenish that, and it has to be clear and fresh instead of like the things that have fluoride and chlorine.
I drink a couple of glasses every morning now before I even hit the coffee. I fill up 2 glasses. Yeah, 2 full glasses, and it's amazing. A buddy of mine told me about it. Within like 5 to 7 minutes, I go from being groggy and kind of like stuck in neutral to being almost completely conscious, completely awake and aware within like 5 to 7 minutes of drinking 2 tall glasses of water. I'm like, this is cool. I think it may have to do with living in the Southwest and we get dehydrated a lot, but it works. It's a wonderful way to like jumpstart your body and clarify your mind. So, Howard, I don't know if that helps at all, but those are our experiences.
Oh, yeah. No, it was I'll get back into it. And, like I said, Easy does it, and I'm just enjoying the journey right now. But thanks again, guys. Great show, and I'll get off for another caller.
You're a smart man. Enjoy the ride, buddy.
All right. Talk to you soon. Take care.
All right. Thank you for calling in.
All right. No problem. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, we do have one more caller on here. We keep getting callers back and forth on here, so their hand ain't up, so to speak. But I'm going to see if they do want to ask a question for us. Okay, caller with the area code 662. Welcome to A Guiding Light. Do you have a question?
Sure. Hi, Tolec. It's Shirley.
Hello.
Hey, I have a question, but I got to give you just a short background on it. I found some really interesting information, and I know you're going to love, and your listeners too. Kincaid was a 30-year explorer and hunter working for the Smithsonian Institute, and he was going down the Colorado River. And he found an opening to off the Colorado, about 42 miles up the river. Anyway, it's on crystallinks.com, and I sent it to you on a question, but you got like 200 questions on your YouTube stuff, so I wanted to tell you about it, because you can access the information through that crystallinks.com. It's called Lost Cave City in the Grand Canyon. Well, when he went inside the cave, it was in the shape of a wheel with many spokes, and they have a diagram of it.
And the pictures show everything, real clear pictures of the cave, what was in it, the whole 9 yards. You've got to read this. And it had artifacts in it. Well, he took some artifacts and he went inside the cave, but he wasn't really equipped at the time. And there was this one particular chamber which wasn't ventilated like the rest of the cave, and it smelled extremely snaky and foreboding. Typical reptilian, right? So, like, he took some artifacts and left, and then he sent it to the Smithsonian, and they came out and took all the relics out of there. And this happened, and they have put the article. It's dated April 5th, 1909, that this happened.
Wow, okay.
1909, so that proves, Tolec, what you've been saying, that our government, Smithsonian's the government, and they have known all about this stuff since the beginning.
Well,
so this is physical evidence.
Sure. I certainly, I believe your story. I haven't read it, but I believe your story. But, just as important, if you look to the cultures of Micronesia, Indonesia, throughout Asia, the mountain regions of Southeast Asia, they are full of stories of dragons and reptilians, not necessarily dragons per se, but also reptilians with wings, short wings, that have been wandering through the jungles. Now, I can't imagine that people would create this stuff just because. And it's part of their history. So inside this cave, there's a Tibetan statue, real elaborate. It's got a picture of it. You've got to read it. It's really cool. And my question is, can you ask the Andromedan Council next time you talk to them, what that was all about? I'm sorry, what was all about?
That cave, that's the Grand Canyon.
Oh, well, the simple answer is there have been underground caves running all throughout the southwest of the United States for years that were reptilian operations, all throughout, like a lattice network of them, all throughout New Mexico, Colorado, Arizona, Southern California, and on and on and on. They're all shut down now, but yeah, the reptilians have been here a long, long time, and not anymore, and their time is coming due. They're probably, I want to say, 150 to maybe 200 left running around the planet's surface, but the tens and thousands of them that were in the underground undersea bases, they're all gone. So that's
right.
That's my answer, and thanks for asking.
Well, this would be interesting for everybody because this was done, it's documented. I think it was a Phoenix. It's the Phoenix in the Phoenix paper, 1909.
Wow.
Yeah,
long time back.
Yeah, a lot of people want proof, well, here it is.
All right.
Thanks, caller. Thank you so much. We have another caller, so thank you for calling in.
Thanks, Tolec.
Thanks. Good night.
All right. We have a caller from area code 209. Welcome to A Guiding Light.
Well, thank you. Good evening. How you guys doing?
Great. How are you?
Yeah.
Doing great.
Tolec, I have a question for you, and I love your shows, and this might be, maybe slightly off topic, but it intrigues me. I love to go out and look at the stars at night. So when I'm seeing those, are those in third dimension because I can see them? Or what dimension are the stars in?
Interesting question.
Getting back to some of the physics and visible light and those kind of things. So I'm just curious about that.
Oh boy. Well, as I've used this disclaimer before, I am not a scientist. Now, that having been said, I would imagine that there are certainly some planets and some stars that are of a higher vibrational nature. I don't know whether you can see those or not. As an example, there are people from Jupiter that are fifth-dimensional people. How they became fifth-dimensional, I don't know the history, but I know that they're there. Also, we stand here on Earth using three-dimensional eyes, and with three-dimensional eyes, we are sometimes limited in terms of what we can see. So then you have to take into account atmosphere, you have to take into account the strength of the magnitude of the telescope that you're using and or the lens. I mean, there are all sorts of factors. You know, I honestly can't claim to know which of the bodies that you're looking at are which dimensional vibration. I would say that up in, as the Native Americans would say, you know, up in the heavens, there are beings of all sorts that we've never ever seen before that exist. So I certainly think that the possibility is there for all sorts of dimensional life. I know it's just...
Well, and as the shift occurs, then, and that kind of what you were just saying, do we see a whole different array of constellations, and you know what I'm saying? Does everything just kind of shift with us?
Yeah, it's a really good point. You know, there are a lot of answers. There are a lot of answers that I have, and I honestly don't have an answer to this one. I mean, I haven't yet shifted to become a fourth dimensional person. I've been told a variety of facts that tell me it's going to be different in a number of ways, but I haven't asked about whether our night skies are going to look different, other than the fact that Tacoma and Nihohea are going to be coming through here sometime and settling somewhere near Venus. But I haven't asked that question about will our night skies look any different. I will ask. I'll ask, and
okay.
I'll post the answer on the frequently asked questions page.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you, caller. We appreciate it. All right, Tolec. Looks like we have about, 25 minutes left?
Okay. Vanessa, do you have any questions or anything that you'd like to discuss?
Yes, I actually did have a question.
Jump on in.
When we've been talking about ego versus spirit, and when we ascend to the fourth dimension or shift, what types of things are going to be different? Will we still have that separate ego and spirit, or will they be merged together?
Okay. I think I understand the question you're asking. I'm not sure, but I'll give it a shot. Let me try this differently. Each of us will still be human beings. We will be a higher vibrational human being, but we'll still be human beings, and therefore we will still have personalities. We will still have families, husbands, wives, kids. We'll send the kids off to their grandparents. We'll send them off to school. They'll learn for a number of years. There will be different aspects of our lives that will be possible because of new technology that we've never been able to use before. But you know, I'm not sure that I understand how you're using the word ego. But if it's about personality, you know, we're still have personalities. We're still going to laugh and smile, and we'll still feel moments of sadness. You know, the full range of human emotion, because we will have been 3D humans at one point in time. But everything that I've learned about fourth dimensional humans is that their emotional states are much more balanced and not as erratic. Now,
so going back to what you had mentioned before with your story, and you know what we're all struggling with currently in 3D is releasing and letting go of the negative and transmuting. Is that still going to be something that has to be done in the fourth dimension?
That's a good question. Okay, the best way I can answer the question is the following. I know that Azar, who's the chief medical officer responsible for all 12 Andromeda Council biospheres, as well as, and we're talking about responsible for healthcare matters, including Joe's clinic up there, I'm sure someday. Including the 6, if you will, hospital ships, because that's the best way I can say it. 6 of the 12 Andromeda Council biospheres are dedicated to healing of fourth dimensional people. Now, I'm going to get more specific. How do fourth dimensional people experience healing? Well, when there have been, I don't know, let's call them stresses on a fourth dimensional person's body, their energy pattern will be a little bit weakened. And so there are specific modalities of sound, light, frequencies, vibrations, and different tones and colors as well, and different tones of all of those that Azar will have available to all of the people who want to make use of them. And I don't know exactly how they work, but I know that they're there to help people and to do whatever healing that they need to do, to whatever degree that they need to heal. But again, we're talking about a fine matter essence human body, not organic. That's part A of the answer. Part B of the answer is people who have decided to stay on Earth and they were 3D, and they're like, I don't know, I don't understand all this stuff, I don't know how, but I'm here. Me and my family, we're going to stay, and we're going to become fourth dimensional people. Bang. Next morning, the fourth dimensional, we're like, holy, what just happened to me and my wife? We don't understand this. Well, there are people who are emotional and spiritual counselors that are on these 6 hospital ships, these 6 biospheres, that will help the people who are having more of a challenging time to understand what their new fourth dimensional life will be like, to help them understand what these new fourth dimensional capabilities are all about. That's the best answer. That's the best set of answers I can give you to what I think your question is. If I haven't answered your question, you can ask it again. Feel free.
No, you answered it. Thanks.
Okay, cool. Good. Joe?
All right. Well, for the listeners out there, I'm going to pose a few questions for you.
Sure.
One is, I suppose if there is a telepathic communication within the 4D realm, and I believe there is.
Yeah.
This would allow for maybe an easier relationship as far as husband and wife. I mean, right now we have to truly guess or hope that the other person is being honest with us or themselves, or themselves even when we communicate in the 3D realm. So when we transcend into a higher dimension, how do you see, because basically we're talking about what's the difference between 3D reality, ego versus spirit, compared to 4D ego. And when we're talking about ego, we're talking about the ego mind, because we're talking about the human experience, which is mind, or ego mind, body, spirit, and the emotional body. So that's the question that we keep posing, just to clarify.
Well, I'm chuckling because, with all due respect to all of the wonderful women in the world, every once in a while, all of us guys stand there scratching our heads going, what did she really mean by that question? There we go. And so, you know what? The answer to us standing there scratching our heads is to look at our girlfriends or wives and go, honey, is this what you meant by this statement? And she'll go, no, I was asking this. And we go, okay, all right, that's a different story, and you continue on. But the best thing that we can do whenever those of us male dogs are confused is to ask a question of our female counterparts and get a new question that will clarify the issue that she was addressing. Now, will I think that telepathy will help some of that? I hope so. Men are still men and women are still women, and keep in mind, we are shifting gears. In some ways, we're like a bicycle, and we're going to go from like third gear to fourth, but we're bringing all of our 3D experiences. So we men may be scratching our heads for a little while. But yeah, I do think, in all seriousness, I do think that fourth dimensional life with telepathy will enable us to communicate a lot faster with everybody. And of course, we're going to have to learn how to respect other people's space. I was talking about a subject similar to this one time, and this guy was saying, well, how do you keep the noise out? I went, listen, you're in business, right? You guys like, yeah. I said, okay, so you're there with your business partner, and you're in a restaurant having a meeting with 2 or 3 other guys at the table in a restaurant full of people at lunchtime, and there are all these conversations going on around you, right? He's like, yeah. I said, don't you filter all those conversations out and you just focus in on what you guys are saying at the table? He's like, yeah. I said, well, same thing. You just engage your brain to filter out, if you will, all of the background noise of the other people who are talking, and just focus in on the person or persons that you want to be talking to. Same scenario. Not really any different. Yeah.
Cool.
So he went, oh, okay. It was easy.
Hey, we have another caller. If you're, we've got 15 minutes left, so if you're open, okay. Caller with area code 805, welcome to A Guiding Light.
Thank you. I have 3 quick questions, and then I'll hang up and take the answers off the air. The first question is it your understanding, Tolec, that in this solar system it's just planet Earth that's going to evolve into the 4th and 5th dimension, or is it the whole solar system and or beyond that's going to make that evolution? The second question is, you mentioned about the 50% of the population, perhaps, give or take, needing to continue on in the school of 3D, and I was just wondering how you understand that they will be moving on in that direction. Is it through what we currently call the death of the physical body, or are there other ways too? And the last question is, you mentioned that some things still need to take place before we can make this shift. Obviously, what the Andromedan Council and the people of Procyon have been doing in ridding the planet of the reptilians and so forth has been a major part, and I'm wondering if, in your view, the whole matter that so many of us have heard about upcoming mass arrests and a change in the financial system and government, etc., worldwide, if you see that as a necessary part of what needs to take place first also. And I'll hang up now. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Hey, Joe, do you want to grab another 2 hours?
We got 13 minutes. Make it quick.
Oh, man. Here we go. Last question first. I believe that there will continue to be a number of that will take place, that will manifest, change themselves on this planet, having to do with our society, our banking system, the way it works today as compared to how it's going to be in the future. There will be a transition. Things have to change, simply because the current system is collapsing as we speak. So there will be a new system that will be in transition for a number of years. That's question C. Question B, having to do with people that will choose to instead prefer to continue a 3-dimensional life, a 3-dimensional life like all of us are having today. I'm going to provide an illustration, a visual illustration, so people will understand my answer completely. Think of a pinwheel. You know, the pinwheels, I think most people know what a pinwheel is. So the Milky Way galaxy, think of it as a pinwheel that's laying down, and it's got all of these pinwheel arms. Well, our solar system and planet Earth sits on a pinwheel arm that's, if you will, also called a spiral arm, at like around 7 o'clock on a clock face. Somewhere up around 10 o'clock, there's another version, 3D world. We'll call it Terra Nova. I don't know what its name is, but we'll call it Terra Nova. People who are three-dimensional humans today that don't want to stay here and don't want to become fourth-dimensional, they will be able to, if you will, hop a ferry. In this case, it'll be a large biosphere. And again, this is a completely voluntary decision. Those people that want to go, they can. And the trip will take like 10 to 12 years of travel time to get from where we are at Earth today to this new virgin Earth-like world up at around 10 o'clock in a clock face in the Milky Way galaxy. It is a virgin world. I could get into all of the aspects of the do's and don'ts about this world. I won't, except to say that there are conditions, and the conditions the Andromeda Council people are laying down are the following. There will be no littering, trash, abuse of the planet, dumping toxins or waste into the planet that people have done to Earth. That won't be allowed. There's also going to be, if you will, this 10 to 12 years of travel time, transition time, to educate the people that will be traveling on this biosphere, to give them a chance to learn what this new world is going to be like, to learn what the natural resources of this new world are going to be like, and also to learn what kind of new technologies they will have as three-dimensional people, and specifically what kind of new clean and or green technologies they'll have as three-dimensional people to have a happy, fulfilling life on this new planet. Answer A. Yes, this solar system and this planet and all of the planets in this solar system are going to be bumping up one vibrational level. For Earth, it's essentially going to be to the mid-level of the fourth density or dimension. I don't live on any of the other planets, so I can't claim to know exactly what's going to happen to every other planet, except to say that they will bump up one level in vibration. 2, I've learned recently, just in the past week and a half, that there are other solar systems in the Milky Way galaxy that have three-dimensional, 3D planets just like Earth. That number is in the thousands. Now, they're far away from us as we would measure them, but that number is in the thousands. Some of them are going to go through the shift a little bit before us. I'm using a time reference now, sorry. Some are going to go through that shift a little bit before us. Some are going to go through the shift the same time we are. And there's another batch just in back of us that are all going to go through the shift at relatively the same time. So if you will, groups A, B, and C, a little before, at the same time, and a little later. Thousands of 3D planets, all making the evolutional shift up in vibration. I heard that, I was like, wow. So this is clearly a time of evolutional magnitude, to quote the line from that movie, in the history of histories. Now, this is like the story of not only the millennium, but the story of thousands and thousands and thousands of years of not only this planet's blueprint, but other planets and other solar systems' blueprint. This is the time to evolve. I'm done.
That's awesome.
Answer. Yeah,
okay.
That's the answer. Yeah.
Well, I think we've taken up enough of your time. We went over by a lot here, but we had lots of callers on, and I think we got to the last one. And there's like 7 minutes left. But what I'd like to thank you again for being on the show. I mean, you're a wealth of knowledge, and I'm sure you answered everybody's questions. And if not, maybe you could give out your information, like your website or your contact information, so people can at least write in and ask any further questions.
Sure. The website is Andromeda Council. In this case, Council is C-O-U-N-C-I-L. So AndromedaCouncil.com. People can, the only way to contact me is through the YouTube channel messaging service. And you can write to me at Tolec, T-O-L-E-C, from Dakota. DAKOTE. And I answer hundreds of questions every single week. I do want to reach out and say thank you to people who have listened to my plea for help in going through the Andromeda Council's website first, especially the first page where I post some updates, but especially the last page of the frequently asked questions. A lot of the things that we talk about here and that I've addressed in other interviews, I'm posting on that frequently asked questions page, and my now constant 11-hour days are backing down to about 9.5 hours. So I'm not getting flooded with as many questions because people are choosing to go through the website and read a lot first. And it's a long-winded way of me saying thank you for doing your research first, because it helps me. And I also want to thank the people that are reaching deeper and asking more nuanced questions, because I'm watching this happen. I'm watching the level of the questions evolve, and people are reaching down 2 to 3 layers below what the obvious answers are. And it's good to see those questions coming in. I don't always know all of the answers, but I do my best to answer as accurately as possible. That's my job, and I want to keep doing it as long as I can.
All right, wonderful. If you ever have time in the near future, I don't know what your plans are or anything like that, but I guess we'll get together maybe after the show and discuss if you're going to be able to come back or not, but you're obviously welcome to come back if you so choose, and if it's something you want to do. Well,
Joe, with you, anytime. You know, it's always a pleasure. Vanessa, I hope that I helped answer your questions completely in terms of what you were asking. Okay, all right, good. I just, it's just part of who I am. It comes from my operations background. I don't ever want to drop the ball, and if I do, I want to make sure that I can pick it up again and make sure that I answer appropriately. So I'm glad I was able to help.
All right, thank you again, and like I said, I'll get with you, and hopefully we can get you back next Sunday if you have time, but I don't want to promise the listeners right now, but we'll talk about it after the show.
Sounds good. Joe, Vanessa, thanks again. It was a pleasure. This was a great show. I was able to touch on and clarify some concepts, like those differences between ego and personality and spirituality, and set definitive borders as to what they really are. And I hope, to whatever degree I explained them, I hope that they helped everybody out there that was listening.
I'm sure they did. And thank you again.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Good night, Vanessa. Take care.
Thanks.
Good night.
All right, bye, Joe.